Welcome back to another episode of the Three-Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. The boys are back to talk another couple of conferences. Preview season is upon us. We are mid-September now. The college basketball season is oh so nigh. And today we talk about the Mountain West and the WCC, two fantastic mid-major leagues, high major leagues, let's be honest. And we are excited to continue our series. Jim, hello, how are you? We're doing our morning recording. I love it.
I'm excited, Kai. Up and at 'em as usual on Thursday mornings these days. We love this routine. We love getting into it. Two very interesting leagues. They are now the powers out west without the Pac-12 around anymore, the fragmentation of that late night delight. This is what we're going to stay up and watch, Mountain West and WCC. And Matthew, we've got a couple Pac-12 defectors in the WCC. Well, excited to see how they'll do this year.
Love it. Yeah, just still can't process that Tulane might be a part of a Pac-12 preview in the future. So yeah, weird times here, but excited that Washington State, Oregon State slithered their way into the WCC. And when you look at the actual projected standings here, we'll go through later in the podcast. Like they do fit nicely in this conference. Like it does feel like they are WCC basketball caliber programs, at least for the interim.
I would agree, Matthew. Hello out there. I'm Kai. We have our conference previews. We have Mountain West. We have WCC. We're going to start with a little Roots Roundup, a little news and notes for you. Before we do, of course, subscribe on Twitter. Follow on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Twitter is 3MW_CBB. That's Instagram as well. We don't post there a whole lot, but you can follow us there. Subscribe. YouTube channel. We are on YouTube looking for subscribers. We do these shows live every single Thursday. For now is the cadence on podcasts. We would appreciate your subscription. And if you want to watch us live or see our faces, those videos are up there. Also, subscribe to the podcast if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or etc. Helps us out. Hit the 5-star review button. We'd appreciate it. And then, of course, finally, join the Discord. We have teamed up with Trilly Donovan, the Burner Discord. Fantastic college basketball community. We're also releasing our conference preview starting today. Our top 50 countdown has been done. It went out. We now go conference preview time, starting with the Big Ten. There is a website for it, burnerexclusives.com. Breaking news, burnerexclusives.com. If you sign up for the Discord, you get access to that site. All 364 teams will be written by us. And on that site, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be old school. I hit that pretty good, right, fellas?
You absolutely swung it out of the park, Kai. Matt tried to respond to you. He's on mute. Ha ha ha. What a goofball. Yeah, Kai, well done.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Also in the Discord, we just talked to Casey Alexander, Belmont's head coach. We just talked to Kellen Buffington, Texas Tech's GM. We've had fantastic coaches in the past. Other guests coming up next week. Jerome Tang, Kansas State. Will Wade.
Heard of him?
Yeah. Ever heard of him? Will Wade, yeah. McNeese's head coach, is coming on. Cody, I'm gonna. Is it Fugger?
I think it's Feger.
Feger. Cody Feger, Kentucky assistant, longtime Mark Pope guy, coming on in October, and so is Mark Titus. Fantastic. A lot of cool AMA guests coming up in the Discord. You're gonna want to join. It's great. It's $6 a month. It's no big deal. All right, let's get into the show. Roots Roundup time. Round us up, Jimmy.
Let's do it. Yeah, right into Roots Roundup news and notes. Also, quick shout out to the Kentucky website for having the pronunciation of Feger up there. That's the only reason I know it. But we respect and appreciate sites that do that. Yeah, Roots Roundup news and notes. Before we do, Maddie, quick shout out to CBB Analytics, one of the best tools we have in our toolbox as we go through 364 team previews.
It's at the top of the tool shed for me, Jim. Yes, just the vast array of all the customizable views for the player shooting charts, the team shooting charts, on-off statistics, some lineup looks, and again, all of those numbers available going back multiple years, and you can zoom into conference play versus non-conference. Very helpful, I think, as we get into the deeper dregs of the mid and low major. Obviously, if you put a low major shot chart relative to the rest of the field in non-conference doesn't look good, but you can actually look and compare within conference. Kind of gives you more of a apples to apples comparison there. So we love Nick, love what he's doing over there at CBB Analytics. If you're interested, sign up. And when you do, please use promo code WEAVE, WEAVE, $40 off your subscription. Coaches, assistant coaches, GMs, associate head coaches, Dobos, if you want the bigger, badder access path into all the goods that Nick has, just DM us and we'll get you set up with a pro tier. Thank you, Nick. It's cbbanalytics.com.
Well said. Promo code Weave. If you're wondering why Matt sounds a little off, it's because his mic isn't fully working and he nearly went to war with his Yeti microphone
I'm
before
still
the
going to war in
pod.
the background.
So yeah, just be nice to him. He's as upset as you are, possibly more. So just bear with us. Bear with us. We appreciate that. As Matt alluded to in the intro, possible realignment now still lurking out in the world. The Pac-12 trying to fill out the mandatory 8-team requirement to get up to a recognized conference with the NCAA. The rumored members right now are Memphis and Tulane. Kai, not quite the Pacific as we typically talk about, but hey, we've already got Cal and Stanford in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Why not put these two in the Pac-12? And then the potential pivot for the American off that, very, very football centric here, Air Force potentially going to the American, which might spell a little more doom for the Mountain West. You could see some more fallout there with a couple of those schools going to the Pac-12 or even the American, a couple more of those, your UNLVs or San Diego States. These are just rumors right now. We will officially update when and if they do become official. Kai, it's just one more thing for us to get grumpy about, old and grumpy.
Yeah, the Pac-12. Geographical names don't mean anything anymore. If Memphis and Tulane are joining it, whatever. We've been down this road. Just bring Cal Stanford back. Why would they want to go back? I don't know. They probably won't. People keep saying that's like a pipe dream. I don't think it's going to happen. Air Force makes sense for football. Sure, American. But it's still pretty weird for basketball, guys.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for Joe Scott. It just seems like that's an uphill climb for basketball. I mean, they just have no chance to compete. Like, especially after this year, they lose a bunch of seniors. That's going to be weird.
Yeah, very, very bizarre what these. I mean, we already had corrupted the numbers in the titles of conferences. Now we're just corrupting the geographical indicators as well. Whatever, that's fine. As long as you're playing basketball that we can watch, we can enjoy, we can analyze, we will live with it. We will live with it. No exciting coaching news. A whole bunch of recruits committed. Really seems like a loose cutoff for 4 stars on our typical go-to 24/7 sports here, fellas. So I'm just going to cut it off at top 100 because I don't want to mention guys that are ranked 158th. That feels a bridge too far for me in my little Roots Roundup section here. So what we've got so far in the past week, 5-star shooting guard Isaiah Harwell committed to Houston, number 12 recruit in the country. Big time get, only the second 5-star to commit to Kelvin Sampson, along with Jarris Walker, the other one and done that went to Houston. They beat out Gonzaga. A really fun duel there for two non-traditional powerhouses going after a 5-star. We also got 4-star shooting guard King Grace to Mississippi State, top 50 prospect. The highest rated recruit in Creighton history in the 24/7 database, that would be Hudson Greer, number 58, a small forward. He is headed to the Blue Jays. Well done, Mr. McDermott. And then TCU and Clemson, both getting a couple of guard prospects here. 4-star shooting guard Caden Edwards to the Horned Frogs and combo guard Zach Foster to Clemson. Well done to those squads, picking up big time gets in recruiting. We're getting a lot of commitments right now as we head towards the basketball season. These rising seniors want to get that out of the way before they play their high school season, get their announcement going. So perhaps going to have more of these in the future. Apologies to guys outside the top 100. You got cut off. That's what happens. Sorry, the weave just didn't give you the full respect. Kai, you have something to say?
Yeah, Creighton's never had a top 58 guy. That's weird.
I think maybe Jackson McAndrew this coming year entering was higher, but his like rating was lower.
Okay.
So he was ranked higher, rated lower.
Gotcha.
We always go through these differentiations between rankings and ratings with our power ratings for gambling. Sometimes they're the ratings the exact same, but they're 10 spots off in ranking. It's a headache. It's a headache. Nothing in the world of transfers. Thankfully, no big injuries unless I missed something. That's great. Matt, one little fun story in the other news and notes before we get to the Mountain West. Wish we'd had this last week on our A10 preview, but Adrian Wojnarowski, Woj, the final Woj bomb, leaving ESPN. He's retiring from his position of NBA insider, and he is now the general manager of his alma mater, St. Bonaventure basketball. He always tweets about him. Now he's in a big time role. I laughed with a friend about this. Of his wife was probably like, "We're retiring to Naples, right? Right? We're going to Naples."
No.
And he's like, "No, we're not. We're going to Ole, New York."
I love it. I just like that cool things are coming to college basketball. I don't know how much he's going to actually move the needle for St. Bonnie's. Like, part of me thinks that could be absolutely massive, but part of me thinks, like, how will he just he knows people that will donate to the program? Is that it? I mean, I guess he has a million connections, and that's going to be his end. I guess he will probably like manage it, and he'll probably have some strategery on how he allocates it. Maybe his player contract setups will be a little bit more advanced than some of the other colleges. So I think he knows all that stuff. Good for Woj. I'm glad he joins us in the college basketball kiddie pool, Kai.
I don't like Woj.
I'm kind of on Woj. I'm pretty on
I
Woj.
think he kind of sucks.
I'm pretty on Woj.
But
Woj,
good for college basketball.
He's on our side now. So
I don't think you would think that if you met him.
No. Woj wrecking the Bucks trade for Bogdanovich and getting them punished a draft pick because he reported too early will forever echo on my nerves. Like, you have to figure that out. If you're an insider, you can't be ruining the thing you're reporting.
Yeah.
So figure that out, bud. Figure that out. Also, like, what is he going to be, an awesome scout? I guess he's watched some basketball. I don't imagine.
He knows ball, I think, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let's have him break down a ball screen coverage, Matthew.
I mean, if you got one more player this year for St. Bonnie's, that'd be a whirlwind. That'd be great.
Sure. That helps in that regard. Sure. But we'll move on. We're going to talk Mountain West and WCC. Kai, I will kick it back to you, Mr. Host.
Yes. Let me write down this handy dandy timestamp for the
there we go.
The YouTube channel.
Are important.
Yes, they are indeed. All right. Mountain West, West Coast Conference. We're going to dive deep, fellas, into each team. We will start off, Matt and I, with the standings. Matt wrote the WCC preview for the burner, and I wrote the Mountain West preview. These previews, Matt, yours is done, correct? My Mountain West is done. Matt's is done. It's not on the site yet.
I'm touching up San Diego, but yes, yes, done.
So very exciting. Hey, kicking us off, Jim. Good cues here. Which league is better for you, WCC or WCC? Mountain West or WCC for me? For me, it's pretty clear. But what do you think?
I think it's the Mountain West, despite some of the losses that it underwent over the offseason. One of the hardest hit by portal and graduation in the entire country. Continuity not super high. But WCC still has a little bit of a softer underbelly. We see this every year with Gonzaga winning games by 30. St. Mary's really propped up their analytical ranking last year by blowing out some of the bottom teams. And I know Pepperdine and Pacific changed coaches, but I still think there's a little vulnerability at the bottom there. You're not getting the best version of Washington State either, considering all the defections. Oregon State lost like almost everybody because they're leaving the Pac-12. Those guys wanted to play at the power conference level. Mountain West for me. Matt, what say you?
Matt's on mute.
Matt, he's got to stop muting.
Stop muting.
It's all about.
Yeah, Mountain West is better, Jim. It's just deeper. I think you look at the preseason. I looked at my preseason ratings last year. Obviously, most teams outperformed those. Had a really good year. Looked at what my preseason ratings were this year. The gap wasn't wasn't all that big. So my point is like, I think the Mountain West lost a lot. People were bummed about it, but it sort of wasn't like showered with hype last year. It's just a lot of teams got better. And I think there were some decent replacements. Probably a step down, but still, I think better than WCC because Jim's right. The middle to bottom of the WCC is really, really soft. Very soft.
Yeah, that's the problem. Mountain West is deeper. And we start with the Mountain West, by the way. And I will say this, speaking of Matt's power ratings, almost every single team in the Mountain West got worse for me in terms of ratings this season.
From end of last year.
Year. Yeah. Not a ton. There wasn't like a big like swoon. But this league lost a lot of talent, and they had 6 tournament teams last year. I don't think you're going to see that this season, but it's going to be really, really, really competitive at the top. Here are my standings. I'm going with San Diego State number 1 still. It is a very, very close group. The top 5 even, top 6. But I'm going with the Aztecs. Number 2, Nevada. 3, New Mexico. 4, Boise State. 5, Colorado State. 6, Utah State. 7, UNLV. 8, Wyoming, 9, Fresno State, 10, Air Force, and 11, poor Timmy Miles at San Jose State. Those are the standings. The fellas can gripe all they want as we go through these teams.
Oh, I'm going to gripe. So many gripes.
Let's kick it off. San Diego State is where we're starting. We're going to go in that order that I just said. Still the fave in my opinion, guys. They lost a ton from last year. There's no hiding that. But the defense isn't going anywhere. The real question is rim protection. Brian Dutcher always has a guy that can protect the rim, especially his better defenses. Can it be Coleman Jones, former Northwestern guy who came in from Middle Tennessee? Matt, your boy, Nick Boyd, comes in, a great get to replace Lamont Butler. Miles Byrd is a guy that I'm looking forward to have a major breakthrough defensive stalwart. I think Dutch brought in enough, little scoring pop here and there. Freshman Farrell Compton has a lot of upside. He's a coach I trust and has a pretty stable floor. Matthew.
Matt, your thoughts?
Oh, sorry, Jim. I think I want to have this mic fixed. Give me your opening thoughts, and I'll start.
Wow. Okay. He's tech troubleshooting as we go, folks. That's what you get. Multitasking extraordinaire. Matthew Cox. That's what he's known for. Yeah, Kai. San Diego State's one of those tug of wars in my head between, do I stick in the range that Dutcher has shown recently, or in an era of player movement where he's losing a ton? Can I kind of go outside that range? Can I drop below that? A little bit concerned about the defense, like you mentioned. There isn't that same kind of Nathan Mensah, Skylar Spencer-esque no-fly zone at the rim. They've had a giant shot blocker, like you said. The roster almost tilts a little towards offense with Miles Heide as kind of a versatile big man up front and a little bit more shooting than usual. But we haven't seen evidence that it's going to look good with San Diego State. On the offensive end under Dutcher. I know he's kind of recruited towards the other way. It's been athletes, since they don't have a ton of skill. I just think it's like an odd fitting roster for him. So I bumped them down to second or third. I think they're not quite the favorite for me anymore, Matthew, but they're going to be in the mix for a tournament. I think the floor is high enough to remain in that conversation.
Yeah, I think they're like a toss-up bubble type team. I had them second or third as well. They love the big rookie Goon. I think they call him Goon. Is his nickname?
Yeah.
Magoon
Gwath or whatever.
Gwath, yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I think he could be like a real piece. I think there's a couple of those big guys around the country that are just being slept on and they play for good big man whisperer coaches. He's probably going to be a factor. It's still just it's one of the weaker rosters Dutch has had in a while. And without like an awesome shot blocker at the rim, I know it's a high floor, but it's one of the lower ceilings I've seen from a San Diego State team. Again, in this context of this league, it's still a top 3 team. But I think like New Mexico has more talent, and I think they're just better, honestly. Look at them.
Yeah, talent-wise, this is his worst roster he's ever had at San Diego State, I think.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
But he's had 5 straight top 30 teams. He's had 6 out of 7 years in the top 50. I just think he has a floor. Talent-wise, on paper right now, you would say least talented team going into the year, in my opinion.
In the Compton, he's like one of the freshmen I think is going to be like way better than his recruiting ranking. I think I've mentioned 2 freshmen on this entire podcast preview series, but I think he's one that's probably going to start and I think is better than just a fringe top 100 guy, whatever he's ranked.
Indeed.
Great names. Ferrari,
yes.
Farrow, Bird. Like they've got great names.
Nicky Boyd. Yeah, I agree. It's an all name team. Reese Waters. Oh, Goon. Come on.
All right. We go to Nevada. My number 2. I basically have them tied with San Diego State. And honestly, they could be better. This roster looks great. And Steve Alford has done nothing wrong. 4 out of his 5 seasons, he's outperformed his preseason KenPom rank at Nevada. The entire front court is back. Nick Davidson is a stud, all-conference player. Trey Coleman is an all-defense guy. KJ Himes led the Mountain West in block rate last year. There's a lot to like up there. And also, they add, I'm going to kick it to Matt first again here, your boy from Cal Poly, Kobe Sanders, 6'8" point guard. That's pretty good. I know he played for a horrible team. He's a solid player, and I think he does pretty well in this offense. I like the other transfer ads they have. The defense could crack the top 30. There's a lot to like about Nevada.
It's funny. I actually think I looked at this closer yesterday. Kobe Sanders doesn't even need to be that good for this team to be good. Like you could bench him theoretically. They could play Rollison, TR, the speedy point guard who I think is going to really be good. You put Coleman and Foster as sort of those defensive awesome wings. They can also create a little bit. And you have Davidson and Himes at the rim. If Himes is healthy, which he's never is. And then behind those guys off the bench, you have like 4 pretty good transfers. Like depth has been a key for this team the last 2 years. Size, positional length. I know Rollison is small and jittery, but I think even if he's not good, you can just put maybe Sanders as like that quasi, Blackshear replacement. Now Blackshear is such a good defender. I think they're going to miss him a little bit, but I think the DNA, Jim, and the fact that they're so old, like old, like sixth year, no freshman on the roster. 0 freshmen are on this roster.
Yeah, the age helps. Alford has been awesome when in the Mountain West. Like when he went up to Pac-12, that's when you kind of got skeptical of him. But dating back to New Mexico days, he's been terrific in this league. I just kind of kept bumping them slightly up, slightly up, slightly up. Every
Yeah.
time I looked at him, I was like, there is a lot here. And the defense really seems like it has a high floor with even potential ceiling as well. I'm a buyer on Rollison. I'm rolling with Rollison. I think he's going to be a nice piece for him at point guard. The thing I'm worried about is losing Lucas's gravity as a shooter. They were a lot better offensively with him on the court. Per Hoop Explorer, it was a 16-point gap in offensive
He
efficiency.
averaged 18 a game. I don't think I realized that. I thought he was just like one of the guys. Like he was like a flamethrower. I just snuck up
And
on him.
yeah, they ran him off screens like crazy off the ball, and defense was always like pivoting around, spinning their head to see where he was. There's nobody on this roster that really replicates that at all. So I think they're gonna have to produce and kind of work labor for baskets now. But the defense is really good, and Kai, they're my number one. I'm picking them to win the Mountain West.
Yeah, I keep bumping them up as well. There's a non-zero chance they end up my top-rated team as I submit the Mountain West to the site, and it's San Diego State number one. I really like this roster. Okay, number 3, New Mexico. The JT Toppin loss is huge. He was a major part of this team, but you have Donovan Dent back, and he's a stud. Is CJ Nolan, their new transfer, coming in a better fit with him in the backcourt than, say, a Jalen House or a Jamal Mashburn Jr.? Does Dent's efficiency fall, being the full-time guy, the focus of the defense, without a House or a Mashburn kind of taking eyes away from him? Possibly. The front court combo, though, in my opinion, fantastic still, with Nelly Jr. Joseph, with Amsel, a guy who did not quite show what he's capable of last season. He had a really good year with Dayton when he was there. I think he has a lot of potential to be a serviceable power forward in this conference. And Jim, I kind of like Borvakainen. I'm not going to pronounce his name right. The Arizona transfer, 7-footer, can't hurt to have off the bench behind those two guys.
Yeah, we're going to talk about another Arizona transfer when we get to the WCC as well with St. Mary's. But yeah, those guys have pretty high upside coming off a bench or coming away from a team that was just so talented in the front court that those guys weren't able to crack the rotation. They're going to play super fast. They were 3.5 possessions faster with Dent on the floor last year. When he was off the court, they basically played at Purdue's pace, which is really weird to think about. But I think they're going to be go with him leading the way. The defense is kind of the worry. It's like the inverse of losing Lucas from Nevada. Toppin was such a beast for them, cleaning the glass, multi-positional guy, could switch a ton. Now they're a little more slow-footed in the front court with Junior Joseph, and I think Amzil is more floor stretcher than he is asset defensively. But they've got some pieces off the bench. Atiki Aliatiki is a big-time defender, run and jump athlete, big front court from BYU. Matt, I've got them 4th. I think they're somewhat stable because Dent's going to be a star and they've got other pieces around him, but I don't quite see the upside this year just in the rest of the roster beyond Dent. And I think True Washington will be a stud as a sophomore.
Yeah, I mean, True's awesome. He's like part of their. I mean, they were so dominant last year when you could throw Dent, True, and House defensively. Like they just gobbled up opposing guards, especially at home. Like kind of feeding off that crowd energy. It was just a different type of team. I think they're gonna have to play better away from home, like most Mountain West teams, and so the identity changing to maybe less Havoc reliant, although they still are going to skew that way. I like Nolan as kind of an old head in the room. It, um, excuse me, Patino was really bummed about losing Toppin, which I think is like, okay, yeah, no shit, Matt. But like, because they do have a pretty deep front court, but if they had him, I was like, man, this team could be better than even last year's team. And I would pick them to win this league with a bullet. Without him, I think they could be as good as last year. And I think that's good enough to win this league. I have them 1, and it feels like more of a by default 1. I do really like this team, but again, it sort of speaks to like the kind of step back San Diego State's taken. Nevada might take a step up, but I still feel like neck and neck. I give a slight edge to San Diego State just with the talent. Also, depth. This team's not as deep as last year. They were very deep last year, a little bit thinner.
Matt, to your point, away from home ranking in Haslametric stats, 277th and away from home. And now that's a very common theme in the altitude Mountain West teams, and Albuquerque is somewhat at altitude, but just worth noting. Yeah, they're much better at home in the pit.
All right, we move on. By the way, fun that we each have a top team. You don't see that very often amongst us, especially in mid-major leagues. Boise State. number 4 for me. This team could win the league. They're right there. Like the difference in their rating with the top 3 teams is like negligible for me. Best front court in the league, one of the best front courts in the country with Omar Stanley, Tyson Dagenhart, and they add Javon Buchanan, an NAIA All-American. Get this, he led his team in post-up possessions and ball screen possessions. He is a versatile, special player. I think he's going to be really, really good for them. The backcourt, though, is the question. You bring in Cardenas, who is a point guard for San Jose State. He's solid, but he was on San Jose State. Nothing else really depth-wise. It's going to be reliant on some young guys coming in. Lockett's a redshirt freshman. He has a bit of potential. Julian Bowie really popped for me on film, a freshman coming in the backcourt. It's Leon Rice. He has a stable floor. He's always good. Jim, does the backcourt hold them back?
Not enough to like be super worried. I think the front court's so good. It feels like a Leon Rice really grind, slow down, play in the half court, and just bludgeon teams into dust. You didn't even mention another Arizona 7-foot transfer and Dylan Anderson joining their bench to give them additional size. I think you can play Buchanan at shooting guard sometimes and just be absolutely enormous and really roll teams that way. He can make threes. And like you said, he's got some ball skills, ran some pick and roll in the NAIA. I think Lockett's a nice complimentary guy that can make shots, and he's at least familiar with the system because he redshirted. And then Bowie is a wow athlete, like holy God, as you mentioned. So you add him defensively as long as he's got decent instincts, which is harder to tell on film. But yeah, Matt, I know you love Mr. Dagenhart. They've got a big bruiser with Stanley, and Leon Rice, as Kai said, just maintains the high floor. I've got them right like within a half point of Nevada to win.
Yeah, Rice is awesome every year. I just think he's sort of in that group of coaches that hasn't had much success, so no one really like pays any attention to him. I like this roster. I really don't like the backcourt though. I'm just sort of trusting that Rice is going to mix and match with he has like the most tweener positionalist wing core of any team in this conference, probably with Buchanan, Tyson and Stanley's more of a post. Sorry, Stanley is a post guy. Tyson is a post guy, but he's more versatile. He kind of steps away, and they can do some mismatch stuff with that, as you saw last year with Abo. So you're right, Jim. Maybe they sort of kind of muck it up a little bit. I actually think at the rim, their size was actually a little concerning. They weren't that big last year, and it's like, okay, they got the 7-footer from Arizona, but Stanley was good at the rim, but not great. I think they were good defensively because of their positional size, not like interior length. I don't know. I have some vulnerability question marks. I have them 5th.
Ooh.
I actually have Utah State ahead of them, which is crazy, but
no, it's not crazy.
It's not crazy.
Not crazy. Okay, good.
They're all within like a point.
This is a choose your adventure.
It's very clustered.
Fun fact about Boise: 0-10 in the tournament all time. 0-10. They've never won a
that's
first
very
round
surprising. Rice is 0-5. They never won a game. I couldn't believe that when I saw that because they're just so consistently good.
It is shocking. Okay, number 5. Again, this team could be a lot of places in the top 7. This league drops off at the bottom. Colorado State. They lose Isaiah Stevens. Isaiah Stevens was a 5-year starting point guard. Isaiah Stevens was a 5-time All-Mountain West player. He is the all-time school leader in points, assists, games played, and steals. He is a huge loss. Having said that, I like Nico Medved, and I don't mind the ads here. You got Boneborn coming in from UNI. He was hurt last year. He's pretty good offensively when he's not hurt. Crocker Johnson was the OVC Freshman of the Year at Little Rock. Post play has been very key for Medved in the past. He's had success with undersized guys before. Crocker Johnson kind of fits that mold. Keyshawn Williams, Matt's dude from NIU, put up 18 points per game 2 years ago, coming off injury. And guess what? I don't even hate the Ethan Morton ad. I didn't like him at Purdue. But I don't hate him on this program as a locker room, play different spots, bigger guard type of guy.
I agree.
And Neat Clifford, Matt, very, very good. Takes another step too.
Clifford is huge. I think I had to step back and pinch myself, like how important he is to this team. Like, had he gone pro, I would be sounding the alarms for the Rams, but I would be very, very concerned. I think he's an absolute massive piece on both ends. For a team that was very good defensively last season, right? They really leaned into kind of like Boise, right? More positionless, length, switchability. And they had some really unique interior defenders, right? Like you saw David Roddy a few years back. They had Patrick Cartier, like the 6'7" guys who have these 7'5" wingspans that can actually defend the rim pretty well. I don't know who that is this year. And I think the perimeter defense got a little worse. And the depth is not as sure I suppose. It's a tough year for the Rams, Jim. It's like last year was the year. They got there, got their tournament win. It was a breakthrough. I just think this feels like a natural sort of reset in the natural cycle of programs, ebbs and flows with all they brought in. Just a gut feeling.
Yeah, I see a little Northwestern to this team where they lost this fifth-year point guard who is maybe the best player in program history, and I think
Yeah.
just made everything easier. I'm kind of pointing at Clifford as a regression candidate. I think he should have gone pro. Not playing
Mm.
next to a guy averaging 7 assists a game that draws a ton of defensive attention.
Good
Clifford
point.
was inefficient his entire career until suddenly last year he was like the most efficient player on the planet. I'm worried he sinks back down a little bit. The Bourne health thing, as Kai mentioned, is really important.
Mhm.
He just didn't look himself last year for Northern Iowa. They need his 2022-23 version to be their best version of themselves. Mbemba, Rashawn Mbemba, Matthew, that's your like Joel Scott
Yeah.
replacement, the
Yeah.
wide
Right.
body big man. Uh, I'm not super enthused. I don't like the Morton ad. I'm not a fan at all. He can't shoot. He's a nice defender though, positional size, like you mentioned.
I think he's
I,
useful. I'm with Kai. I think he'll be useful on this team.
I just think they're gonna, even with Medved's like, insane brain with how he runs things offensively, I think they're gonna struggle a little bit to produce points without Stevens as the lead dog. I have him seventh. I have him below UNLV actually. It's still like a good team. They're not gonna sink too far, but I could see UNLV passing them, Kai.
I could as well. In fact, it's kind of like a rotation in my head, 5, 6, 7, frankly. Top four, I'm pretty sure about, but 5, 6, 7, you could go any direction. So we're going to go to number 6 right now for me. Another team that's kind of creeping up my rankings as I kind of rethink stuff, but it's Utah State. Matt already said he has them fourth. Jared Calhoun takes over. Is this job coach proof? It might be. Either that or Utah State always just makes great hires.
Yeah. Right.
It was Craig Smith, then Ryan Odom, then Danny Sprinkle. All of them had success this program. It didn't skip a beat. Will Calhoun do the same thing? He's from Youngstown State. He did a really good job with that program, who was nothing, basically, until he got there. The transfer portal leads the way for this team, as the Calhoun's teams usually do. It's very dicey. Dayton Albury was awesome at Queens. Queens was not very good. They played in the A-Sun. Gadaritzi was awesome in the A-Sun. Is he a Mountain West guy? I don't know, man. It's a bunch of solid low to mid-major transfers, but I do like their core coming back with Martinez, with Falslev, with Isaac Johnson. Matt, the defense is going to be horrible. It's not Calhoun's thing, and this roster does not have the build for it.
It's funny. Calhoun is a Huggins guy, and he kind of has
Right.
sort of you think he'd have that gritty. They've always been a good offensive rebounding team, which I think he takes after Huggins for, but defensively they haven't sort of lived up to that full identity. I love the returning core. I think you have to underscore how important Falslev, Martinez, and Johnson were. Like Calhoun basically made that the first 1A, 1B, 1C priority before he took this job. I think
Yeah,
kind
Matt,
of transfer.
what's Trilly say? Sometimes the best gets are the ones you
Best
already
gets
have.
are the ones you
That's
already
right.
got,
Yep.
baby. And I think, Kai, you're right. You can nitpick at the level what's the mid-major guys come from. I actually like the guys they got, and I like them in the context of they're going to be at least the third, fourth, fifth banana with who they're on the floor with Mason and Martinez. They're most likely being kind of the main operators. But again, it's always a balanced team with Calhoun, and this roster feel like it's very balanced. Different guy gets you, one night or the other, and their home court's the best in the league, frankly. So, pretty good situation.
Ooh, number one.
I think I go best home court Utah State by a hair.
Ooh, man, that's a very
Maybe
competitive.
Pitt
I think
1A, 1B. Tough.
I think the show at Viejas would maybe have an issue
Oh, yeah.
with you saying that as well. Their top 9 averaged 108 points a game in college last year, Division One. So clearly they're going to score 100 a game. That's how it works. It's all additive. No, I getting those veterans back, Martinez and Falslev, just sets the tone at the top. You can fill in the blanks around them with guys that should hopefully be able to scale down a little bit and roll. You've got a lot of shooters. You've got athletes. Gadaretzi is very thin, Kai, despite some of those very productive per minute numbers there at Stetson. So that's maybe somewhat dicey, but you've got some options there. Isaac Johnson also thin. It's just a team that also grew on me the more I looked at them, like the way Calhoun raised Youngstown State, the amount of options and bites at the apple that he's got for the rotation here. They're going to be real solid. I've got them basically tied for fourth with New Mexico.
Yeah, it is a deep team. It's really a question of again, Tucker Anderson. He was the A-Sun freshman of the year. I don't think he's a Mountain West guy, but I don't mind him as my 8th guy. I think it's pretty solid. He plays a stretch 4 role. Braden Housley, he was the WAC freshman of the year, or all freshman team. He had like an 80 rating. It's not like these guys, the counting stats don't really match what their on-court production, in my opinion, would look like in a Mountain West setting, but they're depth pieces, and I think that's important. And yeah, Calhoun and the Utah State job itself could be, frankly, roster proof. I agree. This team is like interchangeable with 5 for me, again, out of the top 4.
Very funny. They have 2 transfers from in the state of Utah and then 3 from the ASUN. It's like, hey, come on and see the mountains. Come join Jared in the mountains with me.
Indeed. Okay, 7, UNLV. We already spoiled it. Some guys here have them in different spots. Deedon Thomas, he's back. Co-freshman of the year with JT Toppin. Most, including me, thought Toppin won the award outright. Nope. Deedon Thomas, he split it with him. Rob Whaley Jr., mega potential. He's a former JUCO honorable mention All-American. His dad played in the NBA, played for Cincinnati. Jalen Hill is back too. That's a hell of a front court combo. If Hill is healthy, he's coming off an ACL. He's like a 6-year player. Not the best ads in the portal, in my opinion. This team still lacks a lot of shooting. They lost really good defenders in Luis Rodriguez and the Boons. I think that hurts them quite a bit. But I think they're still going to be a pretty solid team, Matthew.
Yeah, I do worry about, I mean, the Boons were awesome. And then the Luis Rodriguez was like quintessential 2-way stud, impact sweating, culture guy, all that, whatever. And now it's just like, you feel a bit weak at the guardish wing spot. Although I think Rich Wayne could be kind of a nice little bounce back guy. Shooter, has pedigree at this level if he's healthy, for sure. I didn't like the Bedford gift from Oral Roberts that feels like an empty calorie guy that can't defend, right?
Yeah, you're getting a guy from the worst Oral Roberts teams in a while and the worst DePaul team in a while.
Like, what is Jaden Henley doing? Who cares about him? I hope he doesn't play. I do like the Jace Whiting guy, kind of a quick change of pace guard that does smart things. The JUCO top 15 guy is like their 4th guy off the bench. So there is some depth here. Shot blocker. Okay. So there's probably more here than meets the eye as I looked at it again, Jim. I still worry about what walked out the door. And I don't know, Kevin Kruger, man, I've been the only person defending that guy. Everyone thinks he's terrible. All the UNLV things thinks he's out on the way out. All the Mountain West fans think he's out on the way out. I have to reassess. Maybe I shouldn't be giving him like the Lon Kruger bump that I once did.
Oh, it's because UNLV's comparing him to Barry Odom, the way he's revolutionized the football program. They're like, why can't Kevin Kruger do that? UNLV's got one of the best 3 players in the league to me. Thomas is awesome. He's just a baller. You can't speed him up. He was a reclass freshman point guard and had a 110 rating with a 2.3 assist to turnover ratio. Like, those guys never hit, and he hit. I mean, we talk about JT Toppin as a big piece in the Big 12. If Thomas entered the portal, he probably could have gone to 90% of programs and been like, oh, we have a stud rising sophomore starting point guard. Just a lefty that makes the right play. They won 10 of 11 when they put Whaley in the starting lineup, Kai. That was like their big surge down the stretch in Mountain West play. They had 8 wins over NCAA tournament teams last year. They had some really mystifying crapping the bed performances, losing at home to Southern, getting blown out by 30 by Air Force. Hopefully they can find a little bit more consistency, and I think Jalen Hill would really help with that. Another 6th-year veteran guy. He tore his ACL January 6th, so maybe we'll see if he's maybe ramping up by the time they get to Mountain West play. I just think with a steady point guard, some size in the interior, and I do like Rich Wayne. I'm with Matt. I think he's going to have a nice sharp shooting resurgence. UNLV 6 with upside to crack that top 5.
Missed a really good Jan 6 joke there for Jalen Hill, but we can't go back.
Nope, don't do it.
to Matt's point real quick on Kruger, I'm coming to his defense. Since 2014, the 3 best KenPom seasons in UNLV have all come from Kruger, all 3 of them. Since 2014, coaches in that time span, Todd Simon, Marvin Menzies, TJ Otzelberger, Kevin Kruger, top 3 since 2014.
Can I throw one more feather in the optimist cap here? After the Air Force loss, which was, good God, that was bad. That was sort of the woke them up, 12-4 down the stretch, number 50 overall team in the country per BART during that span. Yeah, so
that was what I said. That was put Whaley in the starting lineup, and they kind of figured it out.
We move on. Wyoming. Wyoming. What a weird one. Weird team. These next 2 are weird. Wyoming and Fresno, kind of wild cards. So Wyoming brought in Sonny Wicks, to replace Jeff Linder, who took a Texas Tech assistant job. Kind of strange. Wicks was an assistant here before under Linder, and he was amazing at Green Bay. I mean, what a turnaround. It's a weird group of transfers, but does it have upside? Dante Allen, top 100 recruit, 4-star, Kentucky to Western Kentucky. Jordan Nesbitt, top 100 4-star recruit to Memphis. Then he bounced around a little bit. Tycho Dynamo, honorable mention all Summit guy, a scoring big, a pick and pop guy who will thrive in Wick's offense, in my opinion. The returners are kind of meh, Jim. The depth's a little meh for me. Boy, do I love Sonny Wicks.
Yeah, big fan of Wicks. I mean, he really turned around Green Bay. The one like kind of cold water I'll throw on that is they had some major shooting luck last year. Green Bay did, and they looked a lot worse down the stretch when it started to catch up to them a little bit. So I think maybe not quite as incredible of a turnaround as you think. The transfers are very weird. I like Allen and Dynamo could be awesome offensive pieces, but I'm not sure they care at all on defense. Dynamo is like an outright turnstile if he's not doing anything inside the paint. The Nesbitt thing's weird. In Blue Ribbon, he talked up Nesbitt as like he could be Omari Moore with his versatility. I'm like, no, you can't wish that out of him. He was a 10-point a game guy in the CAA for a terrible, terrible Hampton team. Maybe you elevate him some, but I don't have a ton of optimism for Nesbitt. I think I'm just kind of written him off at this point. And then it's a lot of like Agbim's supposed to be a nice on-ball pressure guy. Kobe Newton can make threes. It's like guys who are specifically good at one thing, but I don't know if they have the big connector to make it all work. That's supposed to be Nesbitt, and I don't think it will be. So I've got them 9th, Kai, one slot below where you have them. It's just kind of a transition year for Sundance.
Better or worse than last year?
Worse.
They weren't very good last year. It's like I was
okay,
so
they
high on
played
this
better
team
down the
too.
stretch. They played a little better down the stretch, by the way, just if because they're kind of young, kind of hurt. So like at the end of the day, they were 8-10 in the league, which by the way, not bad for a really good league and for a team that was perceived to be bad. So again, great home court helps, as any team in this league kind of has. Hold serve at home, you're okay. I think they're about the same. Yeah, it's just a mid-major menagerie of dudes. Love Sonny, really, really sharp staff. I think they might get catch a few people sleeping on them maybe in a tough spot this year and kind of steal a couple extra wins that keep them close to 500 in the league.
I actually have them rated the exact same, so I shouldn't have said worse.
Great premise.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for me as well. Okay, Fresno State, another weird one. Vance Wahlberg is the new head coach here, the inventor of the dribble drive offense. Yes, I did not make that up. The dribble drive offense was Wahlberg's creation. He takes over. He's in his 60s. It's interesting. He used to coach Pepperdine, and his teams played blazing fast, like well into the 70s possession-wise. Is he just going to do what Hudson did, like ranking-wise? Probably. But sure, let's give him a shot. All his guys are JUCO guys, pretty much. Aguiard, I'm sure I pronounced that one wrong. Top 5 JUCO guy and the reigning National JUCO Player of the Year. He's a big wing, scores from all 3 levels. Their other 2 main JUCO guys, a point guard, Trimble, second-team All-American, but in the D3 version of JUCO, so very difficult to project how he translates. Crawford, top 60 JUCO guy. Their only real like D1 transfer get is David Douglas from Green Bay.
Like that player. I like him.
Fine player.
You can have him.
This level kind of weird. I'm intrigued by Isaac Bonga. Josh Bonga. Isaac's his brother. Big German point guard coming over. He could be a freshman kind of on the rise in the Mountain West. Matt, I said this before about Utah State. I mean it about Fresno. The defense will be a train wreck.
Yeah, this is the worst team in the league. I'm surprised you have them 9th.
Worst team in the league. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I think Air Force is better. And I think Timmy Miles versus Vance Wahlberg. Let's duke it out for the non-stellar battle. I just don't know. I mean, I looked at some of the JUCO dude tape. The Amir guy looks pretty good. Top 5 kid. He looks really good. I actually like Douglas. I think he's actually a good role player. He was useful last year as a freshman, kind of the one of the freshmen on that team that actually looked like they had a real upside. I don't know, Jim. It could be fun. I'm probably underselling. I think Wahlberg's probably underrated as a coach a little bit, but I think this roster is kind of like...
Yeah, it's a massive, massive range of outcomes, I would say. Just with the complete lack of Division I experience, the new coach, it could go a lot of different ways. To your point, Matt, on maybe Wahlberg being a little underrated, we kind of like dragged this higher over the coals in the offseason, but from Blue Ribbon, he was 559 and 104 at Clovis West High School and 133 and 11 at Fresno City College. Like he has won huge at his other stops. That dribble drive motion offense Kai referred to Needs a lot of shooting. That's what they went after this offseason. It doesn't feel like a full D1 roster yet. I'm surprised they did not mind more Division 1 portal type guys. Feels like a bridge year, bad defense, wonky offenses. They kind of try to get everybody to figure it out. I'm not a fan.
Is Morsek healthy? My guy Morsek, absolute
not till like January.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
And maybe like late November.
And one more dig. The dribble drive offense, it seems like it's simple and like easy to learn. It's a read and react offense, and it takes time. So a bunch of new guys coming in, especially in the JUCO level, it's probably not going to look very good to start with. I am kind of raising them down. I was a little coward, and I did not put them behind my number 10 team, Air Force. Air Force is a team that could be really interesting. They're top 20 nationally in continuity, which is huge for the Princeton-esque type of offense they run under Joe Scott. 3 full-time starters are back, plus another 20 minutes per game guy. You kept their backcourt intact is huge, Taylor and Mills. Their style, Jim, will give them a chance to stay competitive in this league. And with the continuity, I could see them finishing above a Fresno if that situation goes poor.
Yeah, they're like death by paper cut when you play them. Offensively, they're just going to make you defend a bunch of cutting actions. You got lazy and gave them an open 3, or got lazy and got beat backdoor, and they will take advantage of you that way. Ethan Taylor's actually kind of dynamic off the bounce. That helps. I see the defense remaining terrible when you don't bring back Petrides, who I think was the most versatile piece on the team, and they were bad defensively last year. You mentioned a lot of the continuity. They can't fill in athletes from elsewhere. I know they started to play the 7-footer Chelikowski,
he's their hope
towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's weird for Air Force to have a 7-footer. Is that man in a cockpit of a plane? I don't know. Doesn't seem likely. But I'm not totally buying it, Matt, with the 2 guys that did leave. Boylan and Petrides, I think, were really solid. And it's just kind of more of the same. I actually have them 11th, which seems maybe a little cruel, but not a huge fan of the upside.
Man, I get the Petrides thing was actually a big loss. They played pretty well without him to start the year. I know their schedule was very, very easy. And this is Air Force in the context of the Mountain West. I think they might actually be better than Fresno overall in terms of their analytic ranking, but maybe they may not finish as highly because I think Fresno probably has more upside later in the year, I guess. I still like this team. It's really solid top to bottom offensively, but the defensive limitations. If you look at Air Force's like defense the last 4 years under Scott, and even going back a few years before that, they're always like dead last in interior defense. The years where their defense is like not good but okay or not terrible, it's just when teams don't make shots. So it's just sort of like they are.
It's like a straight line. It's like literally a straight line.
Yeah, it's just like don't make a 3. Okay, we're okay. Let me get 3 down and maybe go play offense. But yeah, that there is a very clear glass ceiling with this team, and Scott sounds really bummed out. He's like, I think he thinks that it's impossible to compete in the Mountain West and AAC for a military school. Too. Like totally, like VMI and the Citadel and Army and Navy, like they're multiple tiers below Air Force and conference affiliation. It is sort of a like, what are we doing here type of situation.
Yeah. The opponents in Mountain West play shot 59% from 2. Like they didn't play as much zone last year. The defense was just terrible. They're also dead last in the Mountain West in defensive rebounding and foul rate. Like, how are you fouling when you're playing conservatively? And last in turnover rate offensively. That's weird. Like I would expect this core to be better taking care of the ball.
Scott said that he thinks that the depth this year will help more because like Becker and Taylor like wore down last year and they just kind of sucked down the stretch. I was like, I don't really know the depth's coming from.
Every coach thinks their depth is better. Like, I don't.
Your depth, there's no one new. It's just younger guys who I don't know.
So. Okay, we move on. Last place team for me. You guys are both higher on this team. I want to remind you, San Jose State is 1-33 without Omari Moore. So in Mountain West play, I'm just saying, guys. Timmy Miles is great, but they've won 2 games, 3-33 without him on the roster. It's an impossible job, kind of like Air Force. There's nowhere to go but up. This team is much better than last year. They're not as good as 2023, in my opinion. That's the year that they kind of broke through and everyone was like, whoa, San Jose State. They bring in some guys with intrigue. Will McClendon is a high upside guy from UCLA, a former pretty high recruit. Donovan Yap has been in the Mountain West for like 4 years on Fresno and UNLV, I believe. Day Hall from SFA. I loved him at SFA. Undersized four-man. He was an all Southland player, coming off an injury, I believe, as well, though. Uduje played for Utah State, so he's familiar with the league. Biggest piece is probably Viola, though. Getting him back, he missed the entire year last season. He was a major piece of 2023's team. I just don't see a lot of upside with this squad still, Matthew, and that's what keeps me having them in the basement, though it wouldn't shock me to see them outperform an Air Force or a Fresno. They're not that far behind.
Yeah, the Omari Moore point's pretty great. Like, I think I just forget how awesome he was. I like the guys they got, though. Like McClendon, Yap, Udeji, I'm actually a huge fan of. And Day Hall when he's healthy. And if you get Viola back healthy, that's huge. They need Viola and DeYoung to stay healthy because when they've been brittle up front, they've been decimated defensively. And Miles even got Chol Muriel, who was always hurt. Yeah, it's just like, hey, we need to have center depth this year. Right. But like he like his whole point was like, we have to have center depth. So we got him too. So he's like, we have three centers. Hopefully the top two are healthy. If not, we won't collapse if one does get hurt. But like, that's where I think it starts this team. I think the first four off the, from the transfer wide were actually decent. But they got to be healthy. It's just when you're a team like San Jose State and Air Force, your margin of error for injuries is so thin. That's what happens. You saw last year, you get one or two and it just torpedoes your season.
Yeah, when they got hurt last year, they were terrible, and opponents shot 42.5% from three against them in league play. 42.5%. That is unbelievably ridiculous. I think part of that is like not being able to play aggressively because of the lack of depth and the lack of backline help. So maybe they've, sort of fixed that. They do have more perimeter length with the Mountain West veterans they brought in that you guys mentioned. I really like this team. Before they got hurt and before teams started raining in threes, they were like 130th in KenPom, and then they dropped 120 spots as teams just buried them underneath. Timmy Miles is a terrific, terrific coach. The perimeter gambles that they brought in are smart to me. I'm a fan. I have them eighth. I think they're going to be like a big team that I'm on early in the season.
They beat Irvine. They were right with Texas Tech, by the way. That game was like a 2-point game with 2 minutes to go. I think it would be like 14. They murdered Norfolk. They murdered North Dakota State. Like, this team was actually kind of good for the first 3 weeks, and I think you started to see the wheels slip away. And then Mountain West, they just got beat up on.
It is worth noting they only have two guys back that played last year.
That's true. That's good.
Yeah. They lost the three best players, so it's not the same team. But Timmy Miles is a great coach, and he can make this work.
I'm okay with it not being the same team.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like, what would you rather have?
Amy and Anderson were good though. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Such ends the Mountain West. How many tournament teams? This is an interesting question. 6 last year. No way this year they're getting 6. I'm going to say 3. I think it's down, like I said at the top, but I don't think it's as bad as people think. I think they're still going to be really solid.
Yeah, 3 for me, Kai. I'm with you. I just some of that top 6, 7 will find their way in. You'll probably have like 5 of them on the bubble. It'll be if we added 4 extra bids, kind of what Casey Alexander said in the AMA last night. If you add 4 bids, you get 1 more. If you add 8, you definitely get 1 more. But it's a setback from last year. I'll say 3, Matthew.
I say 3 as well.
All right.
Down year though. Not much down, but just down a little bit. WCC time?
WCC time, Matt. Lead us. Oh, Captain. Oh, Captain.
Staying in the West Coast, we do. Quick recap last year. Yeah, the St. Mary's Gonzaga neck and neck thing was fun, right? Like, I think we actually have 2 dueling dragons at the top of this league now. The middle and the bottom of the league was okay, but not great. I think the story this year is it's sort of, I think 4 potentially, I would say 2 awesome teams. Sorry, 1 elite team, and then 2 or 3 awesome teams, very good teams. And then there's sort of this big mush where it kind of drops off, and it depends how much you like Washington State or Oregon State or Loyola Marymount, and then it gets a little bit dicey there at the bottom. That San Diego's got a little bit of upside, I guess. But I guess we'll start with this. Gonzaga, St. Mary's.
You're going to have to prove that hypothesis. You're going to have to prove that one.
See, Jamerson, Jim? Jamerson's a dog. Love Jamerson. I don't know why no one didn't go after him in the portal. He's actually really good. Gonzaga, St. Mary's, we all agree that they're on different tiers, right? I think that's sort of the consensus opinion. Correct?
I would say Gonzaga's on its own tier. Yeah.
Yep. All right, we'll start with them.
Well,
this is...
Give us your standings, darling.
So I have Gonzaga 1. I have St. Mary's 2. San Francisco 3. Santa Clara 4. So I think there's some debate on the 3-4 potentially.
Mm-hmm.
I have Washington State 5, LMU 6. as far as starts to get a choose your own adventure. Oregon State 7, Portland 8, and then it gets Pacific 9, San Diego 10, Pepperdine 11. And I do feel pretty confident that the worst team in this conference is Pepperdine.
Yeah, let's go through them, buddy.
Reasonable.
Gonzaga. I mean, it's just an awesome team. I mean, there's nothing else to say, right? I mean, it's a bummer that Steel Venters, the much anticipated shot making wing, busted his Achilles after busting his ACL the year before that. Not fun for anyone, but because they poached Michael Ajayi from Pepperdine, they're in a pretty good position to at least backfill Nolan Hickman, Ryan Nemhard. Awesome up front, Graham Ike, and they got Khalif Battle too. My guy Emmanuel. I mean, just a lot of good players. It's a really good team. It's potentially one of the best teams in the country. If we're talking about this team, Jim, it's basically, are they elite, or are they vulnerable at the top of the totem pole? Is kind of how you have to discuss them. We know they're awesome. Just how awesome are they?
Yeah, I mean, they're top 5 for me. I think they're going to land there in final Ken Pom stuff. That's just what they do. I kind of wish Braden Smith was playing this year, the Colgate transfer, because Ryan Nemhard played like 99% of minutes in their biggest games. Like legitimately, I think it was 99%. He never left the court against tier A opponents. And I'd like to be able to give him a rest, but maybe Caleb Battle helps with that. I know people are skeptical because he's been on some losing teams, but look what they did with Rasir Bolton. And I think Battle's even more talented than him. Few has raved about just like the shot creator on the wing, dynamic guy that we have not had. Big fan of that. I think you get a little progress from Stromer. The question I have is Watson was so good for them on off stuff last year. Per Hoop Explorer, with Watson, they were plus 32 per 100. They were dead even when he sat, like plus 0.1. So they're going to have to solve that over the summer. I think they will. I'm not going to like bury them because of that. But Kai, I think adding Battle just gives them the dynamism they needed to go with kind of the solid guards and interior scoring. Now they've got that piece. It just works now.
Yep. Elite team, top 5 in the country, national title contender, 1, maybe 2 losses in this league for Gonzaga this year. And I like the top 4 of this league, but they are that good, in my opinion.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah, they have some athletes this year. The team did not look athletic at all last year. They actually have some athletes with Battle and Innocenti and Ajayi to a certain extent. To St. Mary's, Goose, player of the year in the WCC.
Yeah, reigning player of the year.
Yeah,
we'll look back in 5 years and be like, that wasn't right. But really, there wasn't like a great candidate. I think it should have been Watson for Gonzaga personally. But I think it's okay. That's sort of the consensus too.
Nodding yes.
But Goose is great, Kai. He's a great foundational piece to start from as your quote unquote best player. He's a good defender. He's a distributor, a creator, and I would say opportunistic scorer, as I like to say. He's sort of he takes too many dumb floaters. He's not very efficient, and that's my worry about this team. That's a microcosm of my worry about this team. Who is scoring consistently without Mahaney? And then obviously they lose Josh Jefferson and some of the other good forwards there. So there's some offensive question marks. You're going to have to get some pop from the young guards, Jordan Ross. There is some talent, though, in these younger guys that aren't really proving yet. And obviously up front with Saxon and Wessels, they should be an absolute handful to score against.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. Their floor is stable with Bennett. The defense is going to rock. So you have the returning player of the year in the WCC, the returning coach of the year in Randy Bennett. You have the returning defensive player of the year in Mitchell Saxon. As far as bookends go, getting Gus and Saxon back, it's about as good as it gets, even on the national scale. A little more
defensively, especially. Yeah, especially defensively.
A little more unproven than in years past, maybe this roster, especially from last year. But I trust in Randy Bennett. This team's going to be right in the mix. I think they're, I wouldn't say a clear number 2, Jim, but I think they are number 2 with a bullet for me.
Yeah, there's a world where Santa Clara catches them. I'm a big Santa Clara proponent. We'll get to them shortly. But yeah, the defense, I feel like you can kind of lock it into top 30 with maybe a little upside for more. They don't have the same toughness on the wing. Dukas was a really good wing defender. And on the offensive end, I think they're going to struggle. Like they don't have the Mahaney, Dukas. A, they don't have their shooting. B, they don't have their gravity. I know Mahaney didn't have like an awesome year shooting the ball, but teams really respected him. They feared him. I don't see anybody on this roster that brings that. Barrett's just kind of like a, former walk-on, do the right thing kind of guy. Ross is going to develop. Like that's like the whole thing with this program is that people develop internally, but freshmen don't typically play or contribute much, so I'm not relying much on Mikey Lewis. I just think they're lacking some wing dynamism shooting that's going to limit them. I look at that 2021 team that finished like 75th in KenPom and 178th in offense. That's the
Yeah.
downside to me. I don't think they'll get there, but if they struggle to score really badly, they could end up 60th nationally with a bad offense.
It's kind of like a Virginia floor, right? Like if the offense is really shitty and like the team is still good, but probably on the wrong side of the at-large conversation if they don't get their work done in the non-con, which is critical in the WCC because there are not very many opportunities for good wins once league play begins. I'll be after the top 4 at least.
We didn't do it at the top. Would St. Mary's win the Mountain West? Real quick, I'm curious. They played 5 Mountain West teams last year and went 3-2. They're probably going to play 3 this year.
They'd be my number 1 team in Mountain West. Yeah.
They would by a hair for me, Matt. They would.
I can have them a slight hair below New Mexico.
Okay.
Maybe even Nevada. It's a good premise, though. I see it. Yeah.
I was looking back, last 4 years, top 15 defense, St. Mary's. I think it's top 15, top 20 again, defensively at least.
Jim, to flip that on you, I think there are 7 teams in the Mountain West that could finish second in the WCC.
You mean third or
third? Because they're second or third. I think
some are behind St. Mary's.
I think like UNLV, for example, could potentially be better than St. Mary's this year. Sure. Unlikely, but within the realm of possibility.
That's why the Mountain West is a little bit better conference. Yeah,
it's better. Yep. Yeah, it's a better top.
The depth. Yeah.
All right, didn't mean to belabor that. Was just curious.
No, you're good. Santa Clara, Jim, I'm with you.
You don't have them third though. You don't have them third.
Yeah, you have San Francisco third.
I do have San Francisco third. I'm questioning
talk about them in order.
I'm questioning that. I guess here's what's holding me back here. All right, it's fine. San Francisco. I do want to talk about Santa Clara. I think Santa Clara is a more fascinating conversation. The Dons, though, are my official third team, and that's just more of a program institutional success thing, even though, I mean, Sendek's been awesome at Santa Clara, but I think the Dons have been consistently right here, closer to that number 3 bronze medal spot. They kept 4 key cogs, I'd say. They lost Mongolian Mike, we all love, but I'm not sure he was a winning player. They lost Jonathan Mobo, who was just a freakish defender. I think he's going to sting. But Gerlufsen's been really good about replenishing like these defensive, versatile, positionless type wing guys that also have some skill to them. Newberry, Thomas really popped down the stretch. And I love their backcourt. Ryan Beasley's a stud. He's like the next Khalil Shabazz. Next to Marcus Williams, who has kind of found himself as like a veteran solid point guard after starting so well at Wyoming many, many moons ago. Transfers are okay, Jim. I just think it's a good deep team, and I like the coaching staff. I just have more trust in the program track record than Santa Clara. I don't really have a good argument for it, but that's why I put San Francisco ahead of Santa Clara.
Yeah, I mean, I'm impressed by the retention. Like, I'm sure a lot of these guys could have gone elsewhere with,
especially Beasley. I thought Beasley would be poached so fast.
Yeah, freshman of the year, but his brother's there. That helps. That's a really big part of it. It makes sense, and sometimes you got to do that to keep the guys. But losing Mobo's enormous. Like if they had just called him the player of the year in the WCC last year, I think people would have said, okay, that's fair. NBA draft pick. They played through him offensively, nearly 4 assists a game, single-handedly dominated the boards for him. They sort of backfilled some of that, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's a high ceiling. There's not a wow factor to me unless Beasley is even better as a sophomore than I'm anticipating. So Kai, yeah, I'm 4th behind Santa Clara. I just need to see what they do without Mobo.
That's where I got him to. Yeah, Matt mentioned 4 guys back over 20 minutes per game. But I think the Mobo loss is huge. I don't mind the Lingard ad up front. He was a 3-star out of high school, went to K-State.
I loved him at UTSA. Yeah,
he didn't do much at K-State, but he was serviceable for UTSA. And I don't mind bringing in a Vanderbilt guy, rising sophomore, Taurus.
Good pedigree.
Potential.
Good pedigree, 4-star, top on. Yeah.
I agree with Matt. I like Gerlufsen a lot. I think it's a really solid, good team. They're behind Santa Clara, though, for me.
All right, let's talk about Santa Clara. Yeah, maybe I should have these teams switched. So Santa Clara basically brings back their entire team from last season, except for Carlos Marshall, really good player. But they boomerang Carlos Stewart, who was their best player 2 years ago at LSU last season, comes back, fits right into that exact same sort of quasi point guard spot, along with Adama Ball, who has now upgraded his name to Adama Alpha Ball, which is the most literal alpha move of all time, setting the table for what could be a breakout year for a guy who I've been high on since the day he was born, starting at Arizona. And then their bigs are really good. They have like legitimate size and depth up front. There's actual versatility. Kyle, with your boy Johnny O'Neal can step away and shoot a little bit,
Good year.
despite being 6'10". Christoph Tilley, who I laughed at it for Sendek calling like his breakout player 2 years ago, is actually like a real useful player for this team. Ton of depth. I mean, just a ton of depth. And I think that's probably what I slept on was the upside with Ball and Stewart coming back, and then maybe the depth even beyond like bench 2, bench 3. Just the optionality this team has. It's just so hard to see a world in which this team is bad. Like I think they're going to very clearly be an NIT caliber team with maybe even at large upside if they get hot in non-con, which is kind of a stretch. But I think there's a real path for them to like, oh shit, Santa Clara looking at a potential at large, see if they beat Gonzaga or St. Mary's or something. Kai?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm really glad Johnny O'Neal had a great year for Santa Clara because I saw him as a freshman in a random game at American. I was like, this dude is good. This dude is really good. And I'm glad that that's actually come to fruition. I'm not a crazy person. Yeah, you said it, man. It's like the entire team back from the number 109 team in the country in KenPom. They were top 100 both years before that. Carlos Stewart was their point guard on the 2023 team. I think it's a lock of a team to be top 100 at least. I think it's probably top 75. Ball and Tilly is a great combination. They could compete with St. Mary's for second. Like you said, Matt, outside chance competition for an at-large. Like ceiling for me, Jim, is top 50 for this team. But I think they're pretty safe floor. Like I'd be shocked if they're outside the top 100 at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm nodding, Kai. I think they could get in the at-large mix. There's been a couple of years where I've been lower on Santa Clara, way lower in rating. I'm just super high on this. Trivia question. How old is Adama Alpha Ball?
Oh, he's like 19, really young, right? Isn't that the right answer?
He's going to be a senior, and he's not 21 yet.
20?
He can't buy a drink until
crazy.
December, and he's a senior.
As a
so
senior?
I think there's like still a lot of upside there. He came from France at a really, really young age to Arizona, and plenty more for him to access there. It's a really heavy ball screen team last year, and they didn't have a good on-ball creator. And it's like, oh, we have one that knows our system. With Stewart coming back, he's a great pull-up shooter. That really helps. You've got size. Christoph Tilley was the breakout player in the Almanac last year, and I think he's kind of still got more room to develop there. Sendek's a very good coach. Maybe defense is where they lack a little bit, but I just think there is so much going for them offensively, especially in the backcourt, Matt. I'm a big fan. Oh, and I got to mention Mr. Mahi Mahi off the bench, the guy that's probably going to replace Carlos Marshall, top 10 JUCO player, Elijah Mahi.
Yeah, he almost didn't make a mention of that. It's like, yeah, that's again, the depth is really impressive here. I mean, Tung and Akamet, like these guys have been in the program for a few years. Like, there's some real internal program continuity, which I think matters quite a bit. Some competitive iron sharpens iron type stuff too. So, yeah, a lot of little things here could add up to a big, big breakthrough. It just couldn't get past the idea of like, is this team going to be better without the team that had Jalen Williams, who's like an all-star in the NBA, and AirPods, who's just an insane. He's awesome in the NBA too. So that's where I got kind of hung up. All right, let's go to tier 3 here. Washington State. David Riley taking over, not going too far from Eastern Washington. He brings 4 of his comrades with him from EWash. So the projection here is Eastern Washington is now going to the WCC with a couple of other additions, which, by the way, are notable. Isaiah Watts from Washington, who was with Eastern Washington initially, joining up with his brother, Lawan Watts, who I love. I like this team, Kai. I know it's not that deep, but like this is probably the 5th best team in this league, maybe 6th, no lower.
Yeah, and I think I got him 5th as well. I was just checking. So last year, EWash would have been 5th in the WCC for KenPom's ratings.
Yes.
So I think getting 4 Eastern Washington guys to come with Riley is huge. That was a good program, and ushering in his style to the other transfers, it makes for a smooth transition. Cedric Coward was a first-team All-Big Sky guy. Ethan Price was a second-team All-Big Sky guy. These guys are talented enough to hold their own in the WCC. I think they'll be solid. Jim, could they get to top 100? I think they'll flirt with it. I stopped short of that. And it's a clear top 4 for me in this league, and Washington State's kind of like default number 5 option right now.
Yeah, I have them kind of comfortably a couple points behind number 4, a couple points ahead of number 6. They're wildly overrated on Bart Torvik to me. He's treating them like a Washington State team. This is an Eastern Washington team. Also, point of order, Matt, the Watts brothers are not brothers. The 2 Watts guys are
no way related. Thank you. Not those at all.
You're welcome. They're from like 2 different states. But yeah, they're super talented. Isaiah Watts emerged late for Washington State as like a shooter, gave them a lot of that. and he fits what Eastern Washington does. A ton of skill guys. They attack mismatches. I thought one of the best blue ribbon quotes was from Shane Burkar, the Northern Arizona coach, talking about Eastern Washington and now Washington State. It's like they will kill you in mismatches. They'll post you up if you
Yeah.
switch.
Yep.
And they've got a ton of guys that can do it, ton of skill. They play inside out. And they play in transition, which gets you a lot of easy buckets. So I think floor is pretty high. I don't know if the ceiling can get into that top 4 just because of how good this league is, and it's guys from the Big Sky. But Washington State's going to be a tough opponent next year.
I feel pretty good about Howard and then Lawan Watts both being like, I'm going to be watching them on Summer League in a couple of years. Like they're dominating and they're playing perfect basketball. And then the Spurs sign them and then they're going to be in the league in 5 years. Like those are 2 really, really good players that are just tough covers. All right, LMU. We had some discussion about LMU last night. The Lions. Kai, your boy, Stan Johnson.
Well,
he's had a nice little seesaw to his trajectory. After a bad year, he's bounced back. And last year was sort of hard to really categorize it, but it was, I think, disappointing outright on the wins column. I mean, 12 and 19 is not very good, but they were better than that. They just got decimated by injuries late and it really kind of fell off the grid. But top 100 twice in his first 4 seasons for LMU, pretty damn good. So 2001, there, 2002, step back. 2003, 100, last year, step back. Does the pattern continue this season? I think yes. I don't think it's top 100 good, but I think they're better this year.
Yeah, they're interesting. They brought in a lot of mid-majors who can score, but really weren't on solid teams. Like Amy, we talked about a little bit in the Mountain West, San Jose State. He's solid at this level. Javon Porter is an NBA prospect. But Pepperdine sucked last year. I'm not sure he's a winning player. Stone Carrawell, he was at Utah Valley. He was at Austin Peay before that. Talented, not a massive impact player. They have 2 good returners, Johnson and a guy I'll never pronounce right, Merk Veladze.
I just call him Merk.
He's from Georgia.
Merk.
Yeah, he's the Georgian.
Country, Georgia.
Yes.
Kenyon Vide live up to the hype. How about that? Post-hype sleeper. Guy was like getting press clippings coming into UCLA, and now he's a bench piece for LMU. Jim, I say decent team. Not really sure.
Yeah, last year they kind of got crushed by injuries too. They were playing 7 deep for most of West Coast play, so I'm not totally going to condemn them for that. I just look at this roster and I see no good defenders besides Big Rick Asanza. Last year they were pretty darn bad defensively, despite having Michael Graham and a little bit more positional size in the backcourt. I don't think Johnson's a good defender. I don't think Amy's a good defender. I don't think Porter's a good defender. I don't think Merk Veladze is a good defender. Stone Carrawell grades out terribly in some of the advanced stuff, Evan Mia and on-off. So I worry that they're just going to hope Asanza clears it all up, and that's concerning. But Matt, they can score. I just wish if that's your roster makeup, I wish they'd play faster. Johnson's kind of a crawler tempo-wise, and that doesn't make sense with this roster makeup. So it's a little awkward. I've got him 6 as well.
Yeah, I think that was a function of the guards he had last year, and they didn't have any depth. They kind of had.
No, but he's been a crawler his entire tenure.
Yeah, I guess you're right. You're right. Yeah, that's weird. I get. Well, they had Lupepe, Baby Barkley. It's like they've had weird rosters. Like I feel like he wants to be a guard-oriented team, but he's had like good post players. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm with you. I like Porter more than you. I like Amy probably more than the consensus. So I kind of think there's some upside with this team. I do. I think there's a chance they finish 5th, but yeah, the defensive stuff is a little worrisome. Let's go to Oregon State at 7, the other WCC newcomer here. My guy, Wayne Tinkle, finally in a proper playground for what this talent crop really is, right? And they lost a lot. And that's just like, it's the number one, the program that's been hit by the portal the hardest, honestly, of any of the powers is like Oregon State, just because they can't pay anybody, they can't retain. And they're just sort of like obviously very prominently displayed for teams to come after their players. Kai, who's your favorite player on this team this year? Are you a big DeMarco Minor guy? Are you a big Parsifala guy? Are you a big the right answer is Michael, how do you say it? Rataj?
I actually don't know.
I think he's pretty good. I think he's pretty good. And then Josiah, there's some upside there with some of the guys they held on to, but just not a ton of upside, limited upside.
I don't like anybody on this roster. Unfortunately, it was gutted, like you said, by the portal. We mentioned the Eastern Washington KenPom stat. So this team was 155 in KenPom last year, would have been 5th as well in the WCC. So yeah, it fits better in this league. But Minor and Fala, these guys are so mid-major players.
Got Matty Marsh from Wake, baby.
Okay, he might be okay. He had a lot of hype. People thought he'd kind of be a breakout guy over there at Wake, but is the Kings guy from JUCO going to be good?
Yes, he's
Maybe.
good. Real
It's
shooter. Supposed to be a big piece last year. Got hurt. It was kind of a big gut punch. I think he's going to be really good. Yes.
it's a lot of freshman reliance. I think this roster's pretty brutal, Jim, but they'll be in the mix for seventh.
Yeah, seventh in WCC. Okay,
Yeah.
that's checks out for what we've got here. They're huge up front. Like Fala's 260 pounds. Matt Marsh is like 7'1", 270, big plotting guy. He shot 89% from the field 2 years ago because he just catch ball, dunk ball. Do not even take layups, just catch ball, dunk ball. So they've got that going for him. It is Ratai. I did look it up. So shout out to
Thank you.
Michael to make sure we get your name right. And then Minor's like one of the best rebounding point guards in the country. So they should be like dominant on the glass. I think this is a classic Tinkle, muck things up, slow it down, maybe steal some wins at home in Corvallis as fans try to, support them and come out for the big games against Gonzaga, St. Mary's, Santa Clara. But there's going to be some inconsistency because they do not have much guard play, much wing creation. It's Minor, and then I don't know. Like Josiah Lake was good as a freshman. He's a former walk-on. I don't know what the upside is there. It's just stick him at seventh, and I feel good about that placement as well.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's go to Portland. The pilots, the sea pilots. I always get this confused around actual airplane pilots. Very, very confusing for a non-Northwest native. I love Shanty Legans. He's my guy. I just don't love his roster this year. It seems like they're stepping back into the gap between the haves and the have-nots seems to be widening. I love Max McKinnon. I think he's an awesome player. I think he's a real player. I just don't know how much help he has, especially off the bench. But that was one of like my favorite eye test guys last year at Elon. Now, yes, it was Elon, and Elon was not very good, so he maybe looked a little better or with not great supporting cast. But I think he's a legitimate guy who can create. Is he Tyler Robertson though? No, he's not. He's most certainly not.
Yeah, bottom tier team. I was like, really? Eighth? And I was like, well, yeah, it could be. I mean, 8 through 11 is just kind of like pick whoever you want. It's a really hard job. I feel for Legans, who I think is a great coach. This might be his worst roster yet. There's just no momentum at Portland, unfortunately. And we thought he kind of turned the job around when he had a good year starting off. Masic and Austin coming back are solid. Is Austin healthy? He's hurt all the time, it seems. But it's a lot of freshmen, super young team. And yeah, if your prize transfer is an Elon guy who, to Matt's point, may be talented, I just think you're definitely a bottom tier team in this league.
Yeah, they've kind of got like the big skill lineup that can attack mismatches and spread you out. So maybe there's something to that, but they're so young, so young. They're going to play like 2 redshirt freshmen, 3 true freshmen, and McKinnon's a junior. Bull Dengdit's a redshirt sophomore. Like they just don't have a ton of veteran experience. They're pretty thin, just like in terms of physical stature. Despite being tall, they're thin. So I don't know how this really works. It's a build year, Matthew.
Yeah.
They're just trying to circle the wagons and maybe try to keep retention going in the future. They were not able to do it this offseason. But it's not a ton of upside because they're just so young.
Yeah, I think in a normal year I would be a little more bullish on the freshmen. Like a couple of the redshirt freshmen are supposed to be pretty good. Delano, I think, might actually be their point guard. And he's pretty talented. I liked him. But yeah, again, relative to the super duper seniors you see everywhere else in this league, it's just like, we'll see next year, I guess. This year we'll probably struggle there. Frankly, I maybe have them probably rated too high given the sort of bearish outlook we just spewed there. But I do trust my guy. My guy Shanty. All right, we continue with Pacific, a team that everyone is geeked about because they have a new coach. But good gracious, were they a terrible basketball team last year? Just no fight. But we get Dave Smart, Jim. He's got the Texas Tech Grant McCasland glow of savantness. Great staff. Roster is, well, I mean, it's good. I'd say it's better than Portland's, honestly. And maybe I'm just kind of regretting maybe putting them below Portland. But it was a lot of new thrown together at the last second. There's a commonality between Pacific and San Diego, and I think Pepperdine too. All of them are relying on JUCO guys to be point guards. A little bit dicey, just before you get to the last 3 teams here. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I'm at least happy that their JUCO point guard was started for a 34-3
winning team.
Final Four team. Like he was awesome for an awesome team. That gives me some encouragement. They got a couple buy low, long wings that each spent time at Texas Tech with athleticism, really high upside for defense. And that's what Smart's kind of talked about. He's like, we're going to build from that end and kind of figure it out offensively. I've got him ahead of Portland fairly easily. I think this team is going to be rock solid. They're well coached. Smart won like 15 national titles in Canada, and that's not exaggeration. I think it was 13 or 15, something like that. It's a good enough roster for them to build up. Just to your point of the last year, they were down 56-9 at halftime of their WCC tournament game. They were down 39-2 in that game. It was just a joke. So completely restarting. I think only one guy back with a new coach. This is a good thing. Pretty solid upward trajectory for them.
Yeah, one of the best hires of the offseason was Dave Smart. Probably the best pound-for-pound hire in terms of program to coach. So Pacific pulled off a coup. I don't know how they got him, but congrats to Pacific. It is a really eclectic transfer group. I have no clue if this team's going to be any good. I do have them above Portland, though, because I am a big believer in Smart. Should be fun. Should be competitive, at least. At the very least, competitive. Like Jim said, the Washington Fisher, the two Texas Tech former guys coming in, gives them a little bit of a floor. Your boy Jazz Gardner, Matt, coming in from Nevada.
Yeah.
Why not? 7-footer, throw him in the mix.
Sure.
Yeah, they're better than Portland. It's a big coaching belief to have them there.
Yeah, I love Ralph too, Maddie. And I think I read that his coach from University of Victoria is on the staff. That's why he's there in Pacific. And he was like a all-American, all-Canadian team when he was in Canada.
He's like a mismatch tweener guy, which I think is I like those guys coming to they're tough to figure out. Like you haven't really seen much of them, and they've kind of learned how to be effective in spite of their limitations and have proven that. I do like it's just like Riley Minix for Moorhead, right? Like tweener-ish, but just good at basketball. To who's next again?
You have San Diego next.
Man, I know. I'm questioning my bottom. You're right. The bottom part of this league is just a complete who knows. But I do have San Diego next. You guys laughed at me pre-show. I like Steven Jamerson so much. He's like one of my favorite big guys in the league. He's like been like one of the most underrated players in the league at that position. A lot of good mix in this league though. But they lose two all-everything guards, a ton of talent. The freshman crop that Lavin brought in last year was like actually very good. And you'll see guys like PJ Hayes and Kevin Patton and Jimmy Oladukin like make real noise for real teams this year. So like if they kept those dudes, San Diego could be very much at like the top 5 to 6 picture. But they didn't. They still kept some good dudes, Kai, just not enough. And I sort of defaulted them to the bottom of the pack. But again, I think there's a decent amount of continuity here. Just didn't really add a lot from the portal. Like no portal work from Lavin. He's going all internal, all organic. That's his thing.
I think it's a bad year too. We laugh because you said they have a ton of upside. I just don't agree necessarily. Lavin, I'm not sure about Lavin still. This group is decently talented. It's not even close to last season. They lost so much talent. And if he wasn't able to do much with that, I don't think he's doing much with this group. So I think it's kind of a down year for San Diego. I'm fine having them in this bottom group. Maybe they're 8th, maybe they're 10th, like you have them here. I don't know. But it's not going to be a good season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought they'd be horrible last year, and they weren't. So I'm not going to like over-index on how bad I think they can be this year, but I do have them 11th. They were bad offensively, and they lose their best shooter, their 2 best creators, and with no real backfill at point guard. Their junior college players hurt coming in. Bradley might not even be ready for the start of the season. And then their best defensive athlete, Patton. Yeah. It's kind of bleak offensively with what they lost, considering the starting point they're already coming from. Super young. I just don't see it, Matthew. It's tough. They got screwed by 3 really good sophomores leaving, like you said, and then their sheriffs in the backcourt, McKinney and Turner, are both gone too.
Yeah, again, props to Lavin for actually like he got some really good talent that no one saw and developed it. It just didn't hold on to enough of it to really build on it to year 2.
Yeah. So to your point, Jamerson rocks, but I just around him is tough.
Is Desi, yeah. All right. Last team up here.
Feel the wave.
Pepperdine, man.
Feel the wave. Willie the Wave.
So you guys don't have this as your surefire worst team in the league?
This is my surefire worst team in the league. Yes, they're 11th.
Yeah. So Ed Schilling takes over, and he is he comes from Grand Canyon. This is very much a sort of he's a very religious dude, Pepperdine's sort of a religious university. I think there's some sort of cultural connection that they liked when they chose him from Grand Canyon, which kind of has that too. I don't know. I just feel like this roster is absolute trash. Um, Frankly, I do. He has got good ties to the LA area. I don't think he'll be horrible, Jim. I just think it just feels like it kind of reminds me of like the Roger Pallett Valpo thing where I just didn't like, I know Roger Pallett had better ties with few and maybe a better, but like, it just felt like, we tried too hard to hit the cultural alignment as opposed to just getting a good coach. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a decent comparison. I buy that. I think Odom's decent. I think Cooley's decent. I think Clark is decent. If Koulibaly is healthy, he's a
Koulibaly
solid
healthy,
big
huge,
man.
huge.
So keep an eye on that. My first note on this is could all caps easily have them in last. So it's definitely in the realm of possibility. They probably are going to suck out of the gates. They had 3 guys hurt this offseason. Their international guys couldn't be on campus until classes started. Bethea was still doing classes across the country to finish up so he could transfer. It could be ugly for them out of the gates, and maybe they sort of come together as the year goes on. But yeah, I am never going to resist having this team last. There's a real disaster potential. Like they could be bottom 20 in the country if it goes poorly.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And Matt mentioned reasons why they did hire Schilling. I still think it's weird. He's been on some great staffs. He coached Wright State back in the day. They weren't good. 2 times over 500 in conference play in 6 seasons. The highest he ever finished is 4th in those leagues. Like, I don't think he's a fantastic head coach based on the evidence we have. And then the roster sucks, in my opinion. I'm not a huge like Odom or Cooley guy personally. Like, they come from bad teams. It's definitely a bottom tier squad. Malibu's really nice though, Matt. So at least he's got that going for him.
Yeah, well, Schilling and Lavin boys. I think they're both sort of laughing. They're probably sitting in some
Drinking Coronas
beachside cafe and like, ha ha ha, look at us. Yeah. Jim, your points about the disaster risk are at least this team's a little older than some of the other young guns like Portland. So I do think maybe that could kind of keep them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I mean, Koulibaly is just huge. Like just having him in the middle will make this team competent-ish defensively, not a disaster train wreck. And Mo Odom, as bad as he played for a losing team last year, at least he actually has experience, unlike some of the other point guard question marks. But I don't know. I still think this team sucks. I don't know when they suck or how much they suck. I think this team sucks. Sorry, Ed. They are not a tournament team. How many are there from this conference?
2,
yep.
Maybe 3 if Santa Clara gets it going.
Matt's saying 3. Wow. I'll say 2. 2. Yes.
3. And I think it's Clara. I think the Dons are going to be sneaky really good this year. They've been really close the last 2 years. They just feel like they didn't get one non-con when they should have gotten, and they've been so close to beating Gonzaga and they just haven't. I don't know.
Ooh, I'll board bet you Santa Clara versus San Francisco. Let's have fun.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Grow up, grow a pair. It's a board bet. It's free.
Can't do it. I'm not betting against Santa Clara.
Hey, San Francisco, stop playing Gonzaga at the Chase Center. It's so dumb.
Yeah, so stupid.
Yep.
All right. That does it. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. That was our Mountain West WCC preview. Next week is we starting a big boys.
One of the power conferences. Yes.
One of the power conferences will be next week. We will let you know. Thanks for joining. Please like, subscribe, and rate us. No reviews this week. Leave us reviews. Let's read them. Cheers. Have a good one.